My name is Sabrina Hollis, and at my sister's wedding I felt like I didn't exist. Not in a deep, emotional way. I mean, people actually acted like I wasn't there. My mom put me at a table way in the back, right next to the loudspeakers. It was too noisy to talk and too far away to be in any family pictures. Nobody asked how I was. Nobody really looked at me, unless it was to hand me an empty glass, thinking I worked there or something. Then came the moment I had been dreading. Sister's boss walked in. His name was Cale Donnelly. He's the CEO of some cool tech company. He wore a fancy navy suit and carried himself like he owned the room. I saw him shake hands with my dad, joke with my uncle, and hug my sister like they were best friends. Then he looked right at me. Or, no, right through me. Like I was a waitress fixing the dessert table. I could have let it go. I've let worse things go. But the way he smirked, the way he held up his drink and said, "Impressive crowd, Aubrey," like I wasn't standing right there. That's when I decided, I'm going to say one sentence, and when I do, he'll almost drop his drink. See, growing up, Aubrey, my sister, was always the star. She had perfect grades, cute dimples, and adults loved her. Everyone wanted to pinch her cheeks or buy her ice cream. And me? I was the quiet one. I had scratched up. Fingers from building stuff in the garage. I stayed up late learning how to code, but no one really noticed. In our house, if it couldn't be written in a card or posted on Facebook, it didn't matter. By the time we were grown, things only got worse. Aubrey worked in marketing. She had fancy heels, team lunches, and beach photos with captions like "Boss Life." Me? I worked with startups, signed NDAs, helped new companies get money. But it was always behind the scenes. My family didn't get it. To them, it was just, Sabrina does stuff online. Once, my mom even introduced me at Thanksgiving as between jobs right now. I had just helped a green tech company get $12 million in funding. But I smiled, passed the mashed potatoes, and stayed quiet. I thought I didn't care anymore. Maybe I had taught myself not to, because after a while you realize some people don't want to understand you. They just want to put you in a box and leave you there. Even Aubrey. We weren't close anymore. Not after she forgot to invite me to her promotion party. Not after she told people I still lived in my old apartment, even though I'd moved 2 years ago. It was all the small things she did, the lies, the cuts, meant to keep me small. The older sister who never really made it. Still, I played my part. I RSVP'd to her wedding. I wore the dress she picked. Soft color, boring cut. I even offered to help set things up. She smiled and said, "Don't stress. Just enjoy the day." So I did. I smiled at relatives who clearly forgot who I was, chatted with strangers who asked, "So, what are you up to these days?" in that voice that means, "Still no job, huh?" When the reception started, I found my seat, way off to the side. Close enough to hear the music, far enough to be out of every photo. Even my name card was spelled wrong. "Sabina." I just laughed and set it down. Then I watched Aubrey float through the room, looking perfect, like always. Her new husband, Cameron, followed her around like a quiet shadow, and then he arrived, Cale Donnelly, her famous boss, the man from magazines, the CEO with sneakers and big ideas. When he walked in, the whole room seemed to light up. People turned. Conversations stopped. Even folks who didn't know him could feel. He was someone important. My mom nearly fainted from pride. She waved him over with both arms like she was trying to land a plane. "Cale, over here." My dad stood. My uncle fixed his jacket. Even the groom stepped aside. Cale smiled, shook hands, said all the right things. Then he turned to Aubrey and said, "You look stunning." And she did. She had that glow, like someone who knows the world claps for her no matter what. She touched his arm lightly like they were in a movie together. Then he said it. "Impressive crowd, Aubrey." I was standing less than 3 feet away. He looked past me, didn't pause, didn't nod, didn't even blink, just pure, practiced dismissal. Like I didn't matter. I expected it. Still, it hurt more than I thought it would. To him, I was, just some woman standing near the bridal party. Maybe a cousin, maybe a +1. Someone not important enough to place or acknowledge. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I sat back down slowly, letting silence settle around me like fog. The table buzzed with energy. My aunt started telling Cale about Aubrey winning some award in college. My mother added how Aubrey had always been a natural leader. I tuned them out. Instead, I watched him. Cale. I knew more about his company than he probably realized. I'd read their pitch decks, tracked their Series B round closely. Carradine Capital had considered a small stake but pulled back, on my recommendation. Their platform looked sleek, but they were bleeding retention. Their Latin America rollout backfired with compliance issues and bad UX. I wrote the memo that made Carradine say, "Not yet." I wrote it at 3 a.m., digging through customer churn reports Cale probably hadn't even read. Cale never saw my name on the memo, but he felt the result. He just didn't know it came from me. Until now. I turned. My glass slowly, fingers wet with condensation. My heart beat faster than I liked. My pulse stayed steady, but adrenaline crept in. I could have let it go. Stayed silent. Let him enjoy his moment. But I was tired. Not angry. Not emotional. Just tired of being invisible. So I stood. No one noticed at first. The music had picked up. A few guests started dancing. Laughter rolled from the other end of the room. Cale was still at the head of the table, talking with my cousin. I walked straight to him, not with force, just quiet presence. He didn't look until I was standing there. Then I said, "Calm as anything. Just so you know, your Series B valuation's going to drop if your platform keeps bleeding retention." Like this? The words landed like a soft blade. He blinked. For the first time all night, he looked at me, not through me, but at me. His hand faltered. The champagne tilted. A drop slid down the side and hit the floor. "Aubrey," he said. "Who is this?" She stammered. "My sister, Sabrina." Something clicked in his expression like an old file loading. Sabrina Hollis. I gave him a small smile. That's right. He stared. And just like that, I wasn't invisible anymore. Recognition is a strange thing. It doesn't always come in words. Sometimes it's a twitch of the jaw, a recalibration of the gaze. A moment when someone's brain catches up to what their ego missed the first time. Cale Donnelly stared at me like he was watching his past. Decisions rearranged themselves, like he was remembering a name from a list he should have paid closer attention to. "You're Sabrina Hollis," he said finally, voice low. "More careful." I smiled. "Yes. We've never met officially, but you've definitely seen my comments. Or rather, your board has." Aubrey looked back and forth between us, like someone had just changed the language mid-conversation. "Wait, what's happening?" Cale didn't answer her. He was too busy doing the math, connecting timelines, matching advisory reports to the name he'd just dismissed at a family wedding. "You work with Carradine Capital," he said. Not a question. A memory. I shrugged. Among others. Carradine wasn't just a capital firm. It was one of the quieter power players known for early backing of now household name tech companies. I'd been working with them as an independent strategic advisor for almost 5 years. My role wasn't loud. It was never public. But behind closed doors, my analysis helped shape acquisition deals and product pivots that made or broke startups like his. He cleared his throat. I wasn't aware they had... He stopped himself. I let him squirm just a little. Aubrey finally hissed. "Why didn't you ever tell me you worked in tech? Like, seriously worked?" I turned to her, voice still calm. You never asked. That wasn't petty. It was the truth. My sister had spent so many years assuming I was drifting through life, doing nothing of consequence, that she'd stopped listening long before I had anything worth saying. Behind us, a small group of guests started to hover, pretending to sip drinks, clearly eavesdropping. I stepped back slightly to give Cale space to recover, but he didn't move. He looked different now, not rattled but alert, like he was trying to reorient himself. Like I was a puzzle piece that had been upside down this whole time, and he'd just realized where I actually fit. "I remember your review," he said. It was direct, accurate. He laughed under his breath. "Yeah, it was." Aubrey's smile vanished. "Are you seriously standing here talking business at my wedding?" she snapped. Cale turned to her. "Aubrey, your sister is—" He paused. "Let's just say she's someone I should have recognized sooner." I didn't stay. Much longer. I wasn't there to gloat. The point had been made. As I turned to leave, Cale reached into his jacket. "May I?" he asked, holding out a card. I accepted it without looking. "I'll think about it," I said. He nodded. "I'd appreciate that." As I walked back to my table, Sabina, according to the place card, I caught my mother watching me. Her expression was hard to read. Confused, curious, maybe just unsettled by the fact that something had shifted, and she hadn't seen it coming. At my seat, I finished the last sip of champagne. It tasted the same, but it felt different. Because sometimes power isn't about money or fame or the spotlight. Sometimes it's about timing, precision, and knowing exactly when to remind the room who you are, especially when they've already decided you're no one. The rest of the evening shifted like a slow, deliberate turn of a dial. The music stayed the same. The lights didn't flicker, but the energy was different. It was no longer Aubrey's perfect wedding. It was the wedding where her sister surprised everyone. I could feel it in the way people looked at me. Before, I was wallpaper. Now, I was a curiosity. One of the groomsmen, a guy who'd barely acknowledged me earlier, stopped by my table with a sudden smile. "I heard what you said to Cale," he said, like it was a compliment. "Didn't know you were in the business. In a way," I replied. He nodded like he understood, but he didn't. Most of them wouldn't. That was fine. I didn't need them to understand the mechanics, just the shift. A few cousins came over next, their voices syrupy with surprise. "You never mentioned you work in venture capital." I didn't correct them. I let them believe what they wanted, even my Aunt Denise, who once offered to help me find a real job, cornered me near the dessert table with a soft, apologetic tone. "You've always been so private. We didn't realize." I gave her a kind smile. That's all right. I wasn't asking to be realized, but it was my mother's stare I felt the most. From across the room, through the clinks of cutlery and the shuffle of heels. Her gaze tracked me like she was reevaluating a number that never added up. She didn't come to me. Not immediately. My mother is not the type to admit she was wrong. Instead, she sent signals. The narrowed eyes, the stiff posture, the way she whispered something to Aunt Trudy while tilting her chin toward me. I knew that posture, that calculation. Sabrina had become useful, and that was the only kind of interesting my mother ever respected. I let her watch. Aubrey was another matter. She approached later, somewhere between the father-daughter dance and the cake cutting. Her makeup flawless, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Can we talk?" she asked. We stepped outside onto a balcony strung with lights. The sounds of laughter and glass tapping were muffled behind us. For a moment, it felt like we were 16 again, sneaking out to breathe when the house got too loud. "You made a scene," she said. I spoke one sentence. "You humiliated me in front of my boss." I leaned against the railing. "No, I reminded him I exist. That's not the same thing. Aubrey crossed her arms. You should have told me what you do. That you're whatever that is. I tried years ago. You weren't interested. That's not fair. It's honest. She looked away. Mom's already saying she knew you were special. She's going to act like she saw it coming. All along, I smiled at that. She always rewrites the story. But you had the real version. You just didn't want to believe it. Aubrey swallowed. Why didn't you ever fight for space? You let us treat you like background and now you want credit for being center stage. I turned to face her fully. I don't want center stage. I never did. But I won't apologize for not being small enough to ignore anymore. She didn't respond. That silence between sisters is a familiar thing. Thicker than anger, deeper than resentment. It's the space where all the unsaid things live. I let it stretch. Then I said, I'm happy for you, Aubrey. I mean that. You looked beautiful and you deserve to be celebrated. Her shoulders softened just slightly. I didn't mean to make you feel. You didn't need to mean it, I said. You just did it. She blinked, then nodded. Are you happy, Sabrina? The question surprised me. I took my time answering. I'm at peace, I said. I built a life I don't have to prove to anyone. That's more than happiness. She nodded again. It wasn't an apology, not quite, but maybe the closest she could get. When I returned to the reception, the cake had been cut. People were dancing. A few guests smiled at me as I passed, but I didn't linger. Cale caught my eye from across the room and lifted his glass. This time, it was a nod of respect, not habit. I didn't return the gesture. I had no more to prove. Gathered my clutch, stepped outside, and called for a car. The air was crisp, the kind that clears the mind. As I waited at the curb, I glanced at the wedding invitations still tucked inside my purse. Cream cardstock, embossed names, Aubrey and Cameron. Elegant, curated, expected. I didn't belong in that world. But I didn't need to, because sometimes reclaiming your place isn't about crashing the party. It's about reminding them you were on the guest list all along. There's a strange kind of power in silence, when it's chosen, not forced. For years, I let people fill in the blanks about who I was. I let them call me quiet, weird, aimless. I let them talk over me at dinners, skip over my name at introductions, forget my birthday while they posted glowing tributes to Aubrey's every minor promotion. And I stayed silent. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I knew I only needed one moment. One sentence spoken at the right time, to the right person, in the right tone. Not a speech, not a monologue, not an outburst, just precision. Controlled impact, like lighting a match in a dry forest. That night at the wedding, I didn't just reclaim my place. I reminded them I'd never left, that the version of me they ignored was never the real one. I'd grown beyond their definitions, and I no longer needed their permission to exist. Cale would remember me. So would Aubrey. So would the people who laughed quietly before the champagne dropped, and long after the wedding photos faded, they'd still remember the shift in the room when I spoke. But I wouldn't carry any of them with me. Not as burdens, not as goals. Not as validation, because when you've built your own foundation, you don't owe anyone a blueprint. Just presence. Quiet certainty. A name they'll Google when the room clears. And sometimes that's all it takes. One sentence delivered like a scalpel, remembered like a scar.